Mental Health Network in a moment. But first we can have a word with Robin and Isabel Garnett. Their 15-year-old son Matthew suffers from ADHD and autism and is waiting to be transferred to a specialist facility. Thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast this morning. Can you take us back and tell us a bit about Matthew's case? What happened to your son 6 months ago?
Yeah, he was diagnosed with autism at an early age. In the last year, he's been diagnosed with extra things like ADHD and a thing called generalised anxiety. And broadly, that anxiety has just increased over recent months. And just escalated to an incident in September when he basically attacked my wife and I. Police were called. They were brilliant. They said this clearly isn't a criminal issue. That would be no use to anyone, but it wasn't safe for him to stay at the house at that point. So the only option offered to us was for him to be sectioned, taken to this short-term unit and then referred on to the specialist unit in Northampton. We assumed that would be a matter of days. It's now been over 6 months, so he's languishing in a unit that's not designed or equipped to cope with him, assess him, treat him, or do anything at all for him.
The absurdity of this situation... Oh, sorry.
Oh, Isabel, I was going to ask you exactly that. As a mum, you know, at that beginning, that was the decision that you had to take at the start. But just tell us a bit how it is for you 6 months on, then.
It's agonising. You hear people talking about agonising situation. It feels like a physical pain to know that there's nothing that I can do to help my son, and it's tearing me apart.
And also, you're quite far away from him. You can see him, can you? But how often, and what is that like for you?
Well, I work. I've had to go part-time at work. And yeah, he's in Woking. We're in South East London, and I've got another child who's younger than Matthew. We have to try and juggle everything, and I try and see him twice a week if I can, once a week more often than.
It's a 4-hour round trip to get there, and you have to organise visits beforehand, and you give in all your valuables and any sharp objects, and then you sit in a room with a security person. So it's pretty grim as a way of having a relationship with your child.
You see, my son his body is 15, but his mind, he's like a 5-year-old. So imagine a 5-year-old child in that environment. It's a breach of his human rights, in my opinion, and in Tanya Barron's, Professor. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit emotional.
Robin, Isabel, listen, we'll come back to you in a minute. If you listen to our guest in the studio with us here, we'll come back to you and get some reaction at the end, if that's OK. With Stephen Dalton as well, the Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation's Mental Health Network, who joins us in the studio. It's a heartbreaking story to listen to from Robin and Isabel. How common is a case like Matthew's?
Well, it is a heartbreaking story, but unfortunately it's a story that's being repeated up and down England. Families and clinicians on the front line of services just can't understand why this is still the case, because it was back early in 2015 that the Chancellor announced £1.25 billion of new investment in children's mental health services.
Where is that money then? Is it going somewhere else?
Well, that's my question. Where is that money? Because it's certainly not reaching the front line of services. When we talk to NHS England, they show us a list of money that they have allocated out to local commissioners, but unfortunately that's the equivalent of kind of online shopping, really, where the money is sent out into the ether but no goods arrive. It really is not good enough that families are left in this position, isolated, in very, very painful situations.
What would make the difference?
What would make the difference is finding a way of getting the money directly to the front line. The problem is we're filtering this money through layers and layers of bureaucracy, and the opportunity for it to go missing is clearly there.
OK, let's talk again, if we were, to you, Isabel, as well, particularly. So we know now that they are saying there is a place for Matthew that has sort of been earmarked for him, but he can't get there yet. What's your reaction to that?
Well, that's nothing new to us. We were told in September 2015 that there was a place for Matthew. Unfortunately, the 6 people who are ready to move on from that place and who have been ready to move on for many